Yeah, I'm starting a couple minutes early. Oh, before we get too carried away.
Welcome to the Indie World.
Okay, now we got that out of the way. Oh, I already got a couple of viewers on here. Hello. Caught me in the middle of dinner too. I started dinner late, so sorry if I'm in the middle of munching while I'm on. Anyway, give it a couple minutes and then we'll get started. But well, after I made that video, I think a lot of people were under the impression I was putting a sob story up there. Well, not so much as a sob story as I was hey, long time no see. Yeah, I put a video up like yesterday morning where someone had made a question on one of the game on what was it, Dungeons and Dragons Online. And I'm still talking to the person, by the way. He can be a little abrasive, but I have relatives that are kind of that way too, so I'm used to it. So what ends up happening is well, right now, I don't want anybody going after the guy. I mean, he's a bit abrasive the way he talks, so I'm kind of used to it. I'm a little that way myself sometimes, but he's more so. Actually, since I've never actually verbally talked to you outside of text, text can be abrasive no matter what. Because you can say the nicest thing and someone will still take it like you're being rather aggressive towards them. Hi, how you doing? What do you mean by that? That kind of thing. I should probably leave the door a little open. But anyways, I wasn't calling him out or anything on the video. It was just a question he asked brought some something into question for myself, and I'm one of those people. If something is said and my brain starts going like on overdrive, thinking about what was said, regardless of the intention of what was said. I mean, he could have said something and meant it in the nicest way, but my brain would be going like, yeah, but so yeah, that's what that video was about. It was actually my own pet peeves on myself that I was throwing out there. It's just what he said triggered it, and it was unintentional on his part that it triggered it. So that's why I put the video up, and then later on said, guys, don't go after him. This wasn't his fault. Beef ramen with actual beef in it. But yeah, I'm as you've noticed, I've been trying to make DDO videos every weekend. As since I got all the other games I'm doing on over the week, I figured DDO over the weekend would be good because then it's like I can cover some ground maybe. And I'm starting up a new character. You saw the video for that, I believe. I'm making a Warforged, which was given to me free by DDO because of whatever reasons. I don't care. I got a Warforged, so I'm going to play a Warforged. But yeah, he's been leaving me messages on that particular video, and yeah, he's been abrasive as usual. he's abrasive on gameplay too if you listen to him. So, but that's just how he is, and I'm used to that sort of thing. So, I mean, if you see in the comments that JP here, although otherwise known as Redbeard 44, I believe, yeah, he can be a little aggressive towards me too. I take it in stride. I don't think he's being mean about it. Yeah, I was actually surprised to see you here. So I'm going like, damn it, he showed up. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know, I'm glad to hear from you. I haven't heard from you in quite a while, so I was actually wondering if you were still around. Uh, but what's going on is I was originally going to do. You might have noticed that the game Fantasy, that's Phantasie, was dropped from the roster. I have an explanation for that. Well, if there's not any pillaging and R-ing of any kind, then I'm not interested. When it comes to Vikings, I'm not a big sports fan. Never have been. I think I joined a soccer team when I was in third grade. And that was just because everybody else was joining the soccer team at the time and I didn't want to be left out. And I was bored the whole time. But I had an athletic build throughout high school, so I went into weightlifting for a little while. Yeah, fantasy I dropped mainly because I also had Fantasy Star on and I didn't want the two titles to get mixed up by me. And I just started Fantasy Star Gaiden, which is a game I've never played. But I'm using the same kind of strategy that the previous game did. So hopefully that'll work out for me. I'm going Barbarian. And the Barbarian I picked is full on two-handed weapons. So, and it actually states it in the character creation when I was doing it that it was going to be um, mainly for two-handed weapons. Hey, Chicken Joe. Don't think I've seen you before. You're a new name. But all the same, welcome. And oh yeah, I got to check out the. Give me just a second here. I need to check my. I know it's taking me an hour. There we go. Oh wow, that's the one that did it. Okay. Uh, I put earlier this week. I put up a thing about it was suggested to me to give my viewers nicknames, and I put up club members, nightlings, and fellow PCs, or I could just say PCs, and there we go. And a couple of other suggestions that was added on was crawlers, adventurers, and dungeoneers. I thought there was one more on here. Oh, dungeoneers, party members, and hirelings. Both crawlers, dungeoneers, party members, and hirelings got 3 votes on them. Adventurers got an extra vote of 1. Club members got 7%, nightlings got 43%, and fellow PCs got 50%. But I'm going to leave this up for another week. So if you haven't voted yet on it, it's still up there. I'm going to leave it up there for another week. And yes, I do remember you. I'm actually surprised to see some people from the Comic Cons here. Oh, you're Mega Boardy Chicken Joe. Okay. Well, you don't want me watching the game. I'm a jinx on any sport that someone wants a certain team to win. But it's nice to meet you, Chief Hunter. And yes, I do remember you as being Ash for Pokemon. Apparently, that is the only character I actually know from Pokemon other than Pikachu. Because I really never got into Pokemon when I was younger. I was already in my early to mid 20s by the time Pokemon was around. So I really didn't get into. Get me just a second. I got to go help my dad out. Just talk amongst yourself for a second. I'll be right back. Yeah. Okay. I'm back. I'm back. Hope nobody left. Oh, one person did. Oh, they don't have it for Mac out anymore? After reading all those manuals, have I learned anything? I think I've absorbed some of it through osmosis because I've been playing those same videos while I sleep, hoping that some of it might actually absorb into my brain while I'm dreaming. One thing I gotta say though, and JP can vouch for this. This is the most people I've had on one of these streams at the beginning of it. Because 9 times out of 10, it would usually be, I would be lucky if one person showed up by the end of the first half hour. No, I have not. I've read it in 4 or 5 different manuals now, and I still haven't figured it out. And it has a lot to do with the math. I suck at math. It's not so much the math as the math formula they use. I think, what is it? Algebra? Yeah. Exactly. And the way I think like the first two manuals from the gold boxes showed a formula, and it might as well have been in an alien language. Yes, and yes. And just to be sure to make sure that you understand that, yes. Oh, I lost another viewer. Well, bummer. Yeah, to hit armor class 0. I know. And reading it is one thing. Seeing it and what do they call it, in action, is a different thing entirely. But because I'm not seeing it in action because it's on a computer, and the computer's doing all the adding, subtracting, division, and multiplication for me, and I'm not actually physically seeing it, it doesn't help me on that. And I was going to tell a little bit of a story today, because a lot of people get the impression that I'm some sort of a D&D expert or whatever. I'm not. I'm not even going to pretend to be. Um, a lot of the games I put on my channel, and JP knows about this, a lot of the games I put on my channel, these are games I've never played. They were around when I was a kid. Yep. That's why I basically boiled it down to, but they had all that math and stuff, and once they throw that up there, I'm just sitting there going, huh? But as I was saying, that I don't pretend to be yeah, they are slower, but um, how me put it this way: about 50% of the commands are just a word, and if you don't know what the word means, it means nothing to you. That's why I started reading the manuals 3 years after I started playing the games. Please take note of that. 3 years. I've had these games 3 years. And then I finally decided to read the manuals. So anyway, the reason I started this channel was the fact that at the time, um, I was on heavy communication with my little daughter when it came to video games and D&D games and stuff like that. Um, my original channel, Ulrich Grey Wolf, which I mentioned, but I'm going to actually get in a little bit more detail here. Back when it came out, I was playing Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, I have no idea if that's there anymore. And yeah, the game does have a tendency of being a hot mess, but it's like the only version you can find now without having to do a deep dive into the web to find it. Because I heard that it used to be on GOG, but you had to buy both versions in order to get it. So I don't know if that's a thing anymore, and I don't want to buy the game twice. So anyway, I started up a channel, and originally it was called Leper Wolf, because Leper Wolf was a name I used back in. Some of you will remember this. Some of you may not. America Online, and the chat rooms forbade people using their real names. So I wanted to use the word wolf, and I completely randomized a dictionary, and came up with the word leper, so I put the two together as Leper Wolf. And leper as in the disease, yes. But so what ended up happening was I made this channel called Leper Wolf. It's now called Ulring Grey Wolf. And I started putting and the channel had been around for a while. It was mainly just so I can get certain benefits from YouTube without too much hassle. But then I started adding videos to it, and we lost another person there. That was probably JP or something. Oh, they popped back. Okay, that thing's so weird. I never understood that because a person could be here. I guess if they're not active, it goes quiet and it drops out. Yeah, I remember those discs. But yeah, I was on AOL and I was on dial up. But then I think the first Dungeons and Dragons game I ever played was Heroes of the Lance. And that was that side scroller. And it was the Nintendo version. And I remember just going through that going, oh, wow, that's pretty awesome. Dungeons and Dragons on the NES. And I rented it from a store called Corner Video. It's no longer there. I miss the place. I used to hang out. That was like my bar. I'd go over there and I knew all the people that worked there and would hang out with them. I'd instead of just and I'd sit there and just hang out with them. And I hung out there so much they kind of started paying me under the table because I knew the video store better than they did. And I was underage. I couldn't be hired yet. And the only place I didn't know was the adult section because they had that cordoned off. I wasn't allowed in there, obviously, for obvious reasons, because I was like 13, 14 going, and I was going to this place all the way up until I was 22, I believe. And I ended up moving out of town. And I came by for a visit to visit some family. I decided to go over and say hello to everybody at Corner Video, and the place was shut down and gone. Yay for the Vikings. Yeah, I remember that too. I'd get the AOL stuff in the mail. Hard copies. But I'm digressing here. But so what ended up happening was, I think that was the first D&D game I played, and it was Heroes of the Lance on the NES. I rented it, and I think I was like 13 or 14 at the time. And the NES was just starting to be phased out at that time, and the SNES was coming in. The Super Nintendo was on its way in. I think it was actually already out at that time. But I played the game. I think, I rented it. I had it for a weekend. And for the longest time, I didn't get very far in the game because this was one of those some rentals you would get the manual to come with the game. But because it was around a lot of the times, those manuals get tore the fuck up and completely destroyed. So they would end up just throwing those away. And then you had some that they would actually have like a sticker on the box with the instructions on how things worked. And so this had nothing. There was no commands. I had nothing to go on. And I literally had to learn the game just by trial and error. And I think, I had it rented for 2 days because you could rent Nintendo games for 2 days. I had it for 2 days. And on the second day, because they didn't count the first day. When you rented it, then you had one full day, and then you took it back the following day. So it was technically 3 days. If you picked it up, and so because I would go over there first thing in the morning, or right after I got off of school, I'd go over there, rent a game, go to my grandparents, this house here, and I would play the Nintendo because my parents wouldn't allow the Nintendo at home. It had to be at my grandparents' place. So I would have to make arrangements to stay at my grandparents' place. I go by bicycle over to the video store, pick up the game, come straight over to my grandparents' house, visit my grandparents for a little bit, then go into the den, which was the original area where I had all my stuff at. Which, by the way, it's still clustered in there. This is more spacious for me. So, but they God, how was it? I go in there, play the game for a full day. My grandmother would bring me snacks and dinner and all that stuff right into the den. So it's like I didn't have to leave the room. I didn't have to leave my game. And then on Sunday morning or Sunday evening, my grandparents would always take me home, or I'd ride my bike home around 6 o'clock, drop off the game at the video store on the way home, and then I'd be home for school the next day. But yeah, I played that game and I beat it just 15 minutes before I was getting ready to leave. And first thing it tells you is be prepared for the next adventure. It gave the title of it, which I never saw a copy of that game anywhere. I forgot what it was even called, Dragons of Flame or something like that. So that was the very first D&D related game I played. I had seen what was it? The Cloudy Mountains, which was the first D&D game for the Intellivision. A friend of my dad's, his kid had it, and they were playing it, and they wouldn't let me play it. They wouldn't even let me touch the controller, even though I was like the same age as them. But I had known about that game. I seen it played. I think it was like 87, 88, somewhere around there. My parents had, got me a Tandy color computer. It was the version 2, I think. And along with that, my mom got me a year subscription to some computer magazine. I can't remember the name of the magazine anymore. I think it was I don't even remember what it was called anymore, to tell you the truth. It wasn't PC Gamer or anything like that. But it was one of those magazines that it would tell you tech stuff, very little about games, if anything. And towards the back of the magazine, it had a whole bunch of programs and stuff you could try on your computer. And that's what I was mainly using it for, was to try these programs. And a lot of the times I couldn't get them to work. Like, I think I had one game of what was it, roulette. I was able to get a game of roulette on my computer. I got it to work one time, and after that, it never worked again. But I remember seeing an advertisement for some sort of war game, and it gave gave an address to send mail, for their catalog. So I sent for a catalog, and it was SSI, and I get this catalog. Too bad I don't have the catalog anymore. I could probably get a healthy price for it if it was in good condition. I still had it. But the first on the very cover is give me just a second. Yeah. Okay, this is the book cover, but you generally get the idea. I see that that picture on the cover, and it said new line of D&D game, AD&D. It was AD&D. New line of AD&D games coming from SSI soon. and says, check out our catalog. And so I open up the catalog, and it talks about, I think it was, I remember the four things. It was four items. It was Pool of Radiance, Hills Far, Heroes of the Lance, and some sort of dungeon master's assistant or something like that. I forgot what they called it. But yeah, it was literally like the first time they tried to do a thing where it was a dungeon master's guide, but it was on a computer. It was on disk. And you never hear about that one anymore. But yeah, it was like that one was specific to help actual dungeon masters and players for Dungeons and Dragons, because it could figure out how to put your. To my understanding, it was able to figure out how to put together a encounter for you, so you didn't have to figure out all the equations and levels, leveling for everything. The computer would do it for you, and that's what the program was for. But yeah, I saw the pictures of Pool of Radiance. Okay, JP, thanks for coming by to begin with. I was going to say that. Yeah, you're probably going to have to keep it at home as a home game. Take care, JP, and see you next time. And I always look forward to your comments on my videos, and I also dread them too, because I know it's because whenever you come on there, it's like I feel like I'm about to get beaten by my parents. That's never happened, by the way, but that's the feeling I get. Like I'm going to get a scolding from my parents again. I did not realize there was so much of this. So I get the magazine and I'm going through it. And of course, I read the Pool of Radiance thing. As soon as I saw the Pool of Radiance thing, I go, I want to play that. And of course, I'm like, 12, 13 years old, maybe 11. I might have been even younger because it was 87 at the time. Exactly. I didn't even realize I was unequipped. I forgot to equip everybody. Or when I do equip them, there's like one or two people I forget to equip. I have equipped them, so next time when I do play, everybody has their equipment on them now. I made sure to do that. It's just off camera when I did it. I don't film everything. So, reading the article, I was like, I think I had those pages literally. I've been through those pages so many times that the ink on them was wearing off. Yeah, I agree, but this was back in the time when they were still trying to figure out how RPGs worked. Because you had the only other examples before you had Pool of Radiance was Wizardry, Baldur's Gate, or not Baldur's Gate, Bard's Tale, and the Ultima series. Some more complicated than others. Yeah, yeah, true. Some were more complicated than others. And I think when Pool of Radiance came out, and I'll say this, they went for let's make it as complicated as possible. And that's my opinion on it, because I played Wizardry. I played the old version of Wizardry when I used to have the. I've got Might and Magic. I got all of them from GOG, but I can't seem to slow down Might and Magic 1 to play it, because it goes through the text so goddamn fast I can't even read it. So, and I've been trying to figure out how to slow it down, and I've tried different methods that I found online, and none of them seem to work. Oh yeah, I believe that. Um, what I liked about well, I'm going on a random tangent here. What I liked about Wizardry, the original games, even though I really didn't get to play them because I bought a disc and it had the first 7 games on there plus the alternate version of 7, which was called Wizardry Gold, and this was before 8 came out. I bought a copy, and this was in 96, 97. I think it was 97. And I started playing it, and I'd already played 7. I bought Wizardry Gold separate sometime before. But when the box set came out, I got to get that one. So I got it. And between 1 and 7, it's night and day difference wise. That's it, Wizardry Archives. And it's night and day between the 2 games. They're almost a completely different species. And I remember I bought the novelization of Wizardry, and it was like a how do I describe it? It was a dumbed down Michael Moorcock novel. Because you had this hero that suddenly shows up in the Wizardry universe and finds a magic sword almost immediately. And he doesn't really form a party at all. He just goes through the whole adventure mainly by himself. Okay, JP, for real this time. See you next time. Good night. And I read the novelization and I thought it was the worst drivel I've ever read. It really had nothing. It had wizardry characters and it had wizardry creatures in it, but it wasn't a wizard. It's kind of like it's kind of like this. It's kind of like this, the novel. And what I mean by that is, it has the name, it has the things you would expect in it, but it's not what you're looking for. Like this, it says it's Dungeons and Dragons, and it has Dungeons and Dragons creatures, it has Dungeons and Dragons classes in it, but it's really not Dungeons and Dragons. And that's how that Wizardry novel was. It had all the staples of it, but it wasn't wizardry. And it had the same fault. It had a main character. You know, you know, it wasn't even good at that time. Let me describe it to you. I went and saw the movie in theaters, just a few blocks down that way behind me is a place called Manchester Center. It's a mall. Well, it's not so much a mall anymore, but and it had one of those newer theaters just put in like the year before. Where they have all the surround sound and the nice bucket seats and the bigger screens and all that stuff and stadium seating and stuff. And I hadn't been there in there before, so I go, oh, Dungeons and Dragons. I'll go in there and play. Not play, but go and watch Dungeons and Dragons. So I go in there, and I remember seeing the commercials on TV. There used to be a thing on, I forgot what channel it was, but they had a program where it was like they would just do like a half hour of trailers of upcoming movies. I forgot the name of the program. It was on cable, and or I forgot the name of the show, but I remember I was watching it one time, and I remember what's CGI. The PlayStation at that time had better graphics. Yeah, yeah. That the villain has decades worth of memes on him. But yeah, so I go into there, and there isn't much of the line. This is like they weren't exactly doing midnight premieres just yet. Yeah, Jeremy Irons. I couldn't think of his name, but yeah, they hadn't quite started doing the midnight showings of things just yet. I think it was right after Phantom Menace is when it really started to kick in this town when they started doing the midnight showings. You know, the premiere nights. So I go in there, get my popcorn, I get my soda. I think I even got a hot dog because I hadn't really eaten anything beforehand. So I go in and I get in there and I get in my seat, and I usually pick a middle seat somewhere. I never go directly up front. I usually go about 3 or 4 rows back. And I sit in there, and I came in a good half hour early because I didn't want to miss anything. So I came in a good half hour early, thinking I was going to have to, basically beat people with a bat to get through to get in there. There's next to nobody there. I think the most people that were there were all employees. And I go into my little theater, and it's only showing in one screen because all the other movies had like 2, 3 screens for a movie, for one movie. This one, it was the only one that had one, and I'm already thinking, oh crap. I'm already thinking this is already going downhill at this moment because I'm not seeing any crowds anywhere, and it's It's what was it? Friday or Saturday? It was Friday morning, maybe Thursday morning, one of the two. I go in, I sit down. I have a Game Boy with me, and I was playing Final Fantasy Legends 1 on it. Final Fantasy Legend. And I'm playing that. And that is probably the most boring game RPG you could play because it's basically grinding the game, as I like to call some of these games, where it's like you just spend like hours and hours of grinding and really not doing anything else. And this was one of those games. And I'm sitting there playing that, and then then the trailers start coming on. I sit there and watch the trailers. I don't even remember what the trailers were. And then the movie finally comes on. And it went downhill from there. By the way, when I was in that theater, I was sitting in there by myself. I thought I had a few other people behind me. But then it was like and then when the movie actually started, I turned around to look, and there's nobody behind me either side. There's no one in front of me. I am in that theater. I have a whole theater to myself. And right when I realized that, I'm going, oh God, this is going to be a shitstorm. And so I'm watching the movie, and I think it was by the time the villain actually shows up. What was his name? Damodar and Profian. And as soon as I saw Jeremy Irons as Profian come in, all I thought to myself, this is the only thing that's going to be remotely entertaining in this movie is this guy, and that's it. And I was right. But I will say Snails gets a bad rap for that movie. The character, Snails. Okay. And I bring this up all the time. I'm actually in defense of him. I'm actually in defense of Snails. And the reason I'm in defense of him is because he's the only one that actually acts and reacts like how a player would playing that character. Yeah, he's talking modern speech and stuff, but that's because a lot of the times when you play D&D, not everybody is going to be speaking Old English. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like when people play D&D, not everybody speaks Old English or with an English or British accent or French accent or whatever accent you want to throw in. Not everybody does that. And heck, I played a game where yeah, it was like third edition where um uh our game was decided that dwarves spoke with a Texas accent, with a Texas twang. And that was all dwarves. All of a sudden, they're like, yeehaw! I got that done. I'll put that all away later. So, yeah, the thing is like that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. When they put them in, when they made movies about them, they don't think about, when you're playing the game, how does the players act when they play the game. And so, of course, everybody's zeroed in on Marlon Wayne saying he don't belong there. And I'm just sitting there going like, why do you think that? Well, nobody backs like that in Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm just sitting there going like, have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons? I've seen games where the majority of the players act just like Marlon Wayans. And I've seen games where people, act like Jeremy Irons. You have the overactors, you have the underactors, and then you have the ones that are just having fun with it. And I've always considered the best games the ones that have a good mix of all of that. Excuse me. But and I've actually had people throw the whole what is it, Critical Role. Well, they don't do that in Critical Role, and I'm going like, well, they're playing their version of Dungeons and Dragons. They're not playing the version of Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I don't think there is such a thing as the version of Dungeons and Dragons to play, because everybody has their own little takes and giveaways on the game. I don't want to talk about it too much, but I am going to bring it up. Hasbro is trying to make the game of Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is going to bite them in the ass. Because there's no way it can be done. Everybody's going to play their way, no matter what. Yeah, you got people that say, well, we're going to have this. You got to have your pronouns and this and that. Well, the thing is, if the players don't want pronouns in their games, they're not going to have pronouns in their games. If they want pronouns in their games, they're going to have pronouns in their games. Exactly. It's going to be, I always see it as it's a player-friendly game. It's how the players perceive the game. Because if you don't have the players, you don't have a game. I've heard of the what did they call it? The rule of cool. If it's cool sounding and everybody's all right with it, go for it. That kind of stuff. I'm usually that kind of a player, or a DM. I've only actually played Dungeons and Dragons as a player once or twice, maybe 3 times, but I never really got far because usually the games would collapse underneath them. Pretty much every game I played D&D wise, the games collapsed up until the last 3 games. And I know I've mentioned I'm going to be putting up stories on those, and the problem is, it's my own hubris that's the problem with those videos coming up because I keep redoing them. I make a video, I think it's pretty good, but like the day before I put it up, I watch it one more time and I'm cringing at watching it. I'm going, "Ugh. Oh, no," So, I'm doing that, and I'm just sitting there going that, and it's pretty much my own hubris and ego that's keeping the videos coming up. Because every single time it's like my own ego, my own fears come into play, and I don't want to put the video up, so I erase it and start over. And I think I've done it 7 times now. But anyways, I was talking about I'm going back to the original subject, and that was me putting up this channel to play Dungeons and Dragons video games. Um, the guy that I'm in the guild with, the guy that I would say is in charge of the guild, he doesn't mind that I'm doing streams, but he does question why I do them because he doesn't understand the draw of it, I guess. And I told him, I told him that first and foremost, I'm playing the games to learn the game and play the game and have fun with the game. That's the bottom line. The streams, these like this streams, the videos, the all the other stuff, that's secondary. I'm mainly playing the games because I want to beat the games. I'm mainly playing the games because I want to play the games. And like I said, the streams, the videos, it's all secondary. Wow. Uh, the first time I played Dean, actually the first tabletop RPG I played was Mech Warrior, and we didn't play it very well. And we were playing it in school, and what ended the game, and I ended up being the game master. And what ended it was the fact that apparently just having dice is considered gambling paraphernalia. And if I was told if I ever brought it back again, I'd be suspended. So so that ended our game quick, and we ended up and none of us knew where each other lived at the time, so that kind of killed the game there. Then we played Call of Cthulhu, and I think we only played like one session, and when it was over, all of us were pretty much bored with it. None of us liked it, and then I think I was what 22, 21, 22, and I get invited to a D&D game. I get invited to a D&D game by my friend Dan, which by the way, Dan has a channel on YouTube or no, on Twitch, Zombie Dan TV. Check him out sometime. He's a good guy. He's been my best friend since freshman in high school. Well, he's one of my two best friends. My other best friend, he was my best friend since 8th grade. I knew him 1 year before, but haven't seen or heard from him in a while. I've had some people tell me how he's doing, but off firsthand, I don't know myself. So, but I do wish Eric the best, and I hope he comes in contact with me at some point. But yeah, Zombie Dan TV. He does his own streams on Twitch. He doesn't do them very often, but he does. And give the guy some love. He's my best friend, and And he actually got me started on doing the whole YouTube thing, and eventually going on Twitch. He gave me the what do you want to call it? But anyway, so yeah, it was Dan that was running the game, and there was a girl. I'm not going to give her name away. We'll just call her. Who cares? Anyway, so this one person, and I mentioned this story plenty of times before, but this was my actual first time attempting to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, and I made a human barbarian. Don't even remember the name. I just remember it was a human barbarian, and I spent 2, maybe 3 hours putting this character together, which was the majority of a morning. Everybody else had their characters already made up. I was the last one to show up which kind of baffled me because, we've played games like that before, and he knows that I was infatuated with Dungeons and Dragons and always wanted to play it. But he was under the impression that I didn't like it for whatever reason. I think it had a lot to do with my parents at the time, because they fell into that whole category of Dungeons and Dragons is bad. You'll go to hell. You'll kill us in our sleep, kind of thing. Yeah, they fell into that group. And then when they actually met my friends, it was all like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. So, I mean, Dad now, he encourages me on this stuff, and I'm 48 years old now. Now I'm getting my dad's approval on it. Better late than never, I guess. But he goes, we go and get together. And Daniel swore up and down that I said I never wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't recall ever saying that. And at that time I was reading the Dragonlance novels. I had read a few of the Forgotten Realms novels, and I do remember the only ones I really remember was the Dragonlance Chronicles trilogy, which to me, the first book, and I'm not counting the second 2 books, but the first book is probably the best example of a novel of D&D being translated to a novel. Just the first volume, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, I think it was, and that's the best example because it has your characters. They're all doing something in it. They all try different things, and it's not just straight up hack and slash through the whole thing. And everybody has a personality of one kind or another. They're not all the same person in a different skin. But so he goes, well, come on over. We'll get you into the group. We're just starting a new game. I'm like, okay. So that weekend I show up. Like I said, we spent 3 hours building my character. He's helping me along. And yes, he tried to explain Thaco to me, and it was like water off a duck's back. It just fell right off of me. And we finally get everything together. And by the time I'm done, it's lunchtime. So we stop, take a break. We have pizza for lunch. And then before we actually get started, one of the guys says, hey, I have the key to the rec room over at the apartment complex next door. Why don't we just go over there and use the rec room? There's plenty of space there. We don't have to use this, your parents' living room. And everybody's up for that. So, we pick up our pizza. We go go over to the thing, which was just like a half a block away. Wasn't even that far away. And we go in there, and they had a big screen TV. And this was the 90s, so it was one of those big boxes or, backlit TVs. And they put Excalibur on there. God. And so while Excalibur's starting up, we're finishing our lunch, and then we finally sit down to play the game. And I'd say not even the 2 minutes into it, the girl in question starts having a problem with the game. I mean, immediately just starts having a problem with the game. And to this day, I don't even know what her issue was. And that was between Dan and her. But they leave the room, they close the door behind them, and we can hear from the other door. They are yelling at each other. Well, he's not yelling, he's just talking loudly, trying to understand why she's so pissed off. And she's just laying into him. And it had to do with the game. It had to do with her character and him and how he was DMing. And oh god. So anyway, that argument went on for about 2 hours. And that was about 2:30, 3 o'clock. They finally settle down, and we think they've come to an agreement. So they both come in. She's red in the face, but she's a little calm now. And he just is bewildered, like he has no idea what even took place. And he sits down at the screen, and we start to get ready to play again. And another couple of minutes go into the game, and all of a sudden she starts up again. They go into the other room and they start up. By the time they stopped, it was about 9 p.m. and that was when we had to shut down the rec room. We had to leave the rec room because that's closed at 9 o'clock. And we went back over to Dan's house, but we didn't continue playing the game because everybody, his family was there, and there was no space for us to play D&D anymore. So that completely ended the session. And I was just sitting there going like, I couldn't even give an opinion about AD&D second edition because technically I didn't even get to play it. I made a character and that was it. And that was my first experience actual with the tabletop. Then many, 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 many years later, I think it was almost a decade and a half. No, actually it was a decade. I had bought third edition when it came out, the first three rule books. But where I was living, nobody was really playing Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't know anybody that played Dungeons and Dragons. And technically, I really didn't know anybody at all, really, other than where I worked at, and I was working at a McDonald's. And no, I don't think any of them were interested in D&D. They were more interested in who was screwing who half the time. Might as well have been back in high school. So, around the time I was dating the woman who I would eventually marry and eventually divorce, there was we get into contact with Dan again. I hadn't seen Dan in quite a while, and find out where he lived and him and his family and all that. And when we're down there, they just say, "Hey, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons while you're here?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I don't know how. Well, turned out my fiance was into Dungeons and Dragons as well, and she was interested in playing too. So we spent the weekend there building our characters and stuff and playing a couple sessions. And I remember actually having fun. Um, I played a half orc paladin, and through third edition, and we had a blast. And I think like about every couple of weekends we'd come over and we'd play some D&D. But then, that's one of those things of, at some point, things fall through because of scheduling and stuff, and we never got back to it. And then finally get a hold of him, things starting to straighten out again. We get a hold of him, but he had already started with another group on fourth edition by that point. And I knew nothing about fourth edition at that time because I didn't even know fourth edition was out. So we ended up joining them for a game, and there were so many players involved. I think it was a total of 12 people. It was overwhelming for him, and he never wanted to do that again. So that was the point where I decided, you know what, maybe I should start putting together my own games. And um, but we didn't get around to it for like another year. We were homeless at one point, and we were living in a church that basically I was like a part-time groundskeeper there for a little while, and they were letting me and the family, and we were married at that point, and they were letting us live there in the church. And Autumn, who is one of my three stepdaughters, the middle one, which I never called them stepdaughters. The only time I call them stepdaughters is when I try to explain the relationship. So we get together. That's not very nice. Setting a person's foot on fire because they fell asleep at a game. I played a game of Vampire, and I was drunk off my ass, but whenever it was my turn, I was fully functioning. Still don't know how to explain that one. But back to this, he goes, I decide, we're going to play D&D. We get the box set because I don't know anything about 4th edition, so I just want to go as basic as possible. And it was Autumn's birthday coming up. She wanted to celebrate her birthday by learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And she's one of the reasons why I started this channel. And I'll get to that too in a minute. So we played our first game, and by the way, every single one of the player characters was a girl. We had my wife, two of the daughters, and one of their friends, all girls. And they had fun, and so we ended up once we had a place to live and we started getting organized and stuff. We started buying. I started, and I had, started to get some money in. We moved down to Fresno to an apartment, and I started organizing games there. And two of my girls were regular players. My wife, who was eventually my ex-wife, was a regular player, and a few other people. And when I first started, I made the mistake of inviting that one person that got argumentative with Dan to the game, to my first game, as a full-fledged DM. I mean, full-fledged DM is I actually put the game together. I did the story arcs. I did put together the encounters, all that, without using a book or anything, telling me how to do things. And so, like modules or any of the other campaign books or whatever, this was all me this time. And what ended up happening was she wanted to play a character race that I didn't have available because I didn't have the book for it. This was 4th edition. You had 3 players' handbooks. And the 3rd player's handbook had Minotaurs, and she wanted to play a Minotaur. And I said, "Well, okay, if you get the book, I'll let me read through it. I'll allow it." And I had no problem with it. I thought she was going to be like a fighter or a paladin, a fighter, a barbarian, something like that with her Minotaur. No, she decides to be a rogue. You want this 8-foot, 400-pound horned bull creature to be a rogue. And I'm just sitting there going, like, subtlety is not going to be involved when it comes to this character. So, and I was right. She did not play her Minotaur rogue anywhere close to a rogue. She played it like a regular fighter. And this is where the complications started. She makes she makes her character. Everybody makes their characters, and we got all these cool. We got this cool little party here about six or seven players, and at some point, I don't remember when exactly I caught on, but I started to suspect something was going on with her character, and the reason was she was always loaded with cash. Her character was always loaded, even though she was spending like crazy. She always seemed to have an exorbitant amount of cash, which she didn't know. I was actually keeping tabs on what the amount of money people had. I was keeping tabs on everything. Apparently, she wasn't expecting me to do that. And so I invited Dan and Eric over to join in the game for an evening because I wanted a second pair of eyes on this. So I invited them over for the evening. They made a couple of characters, and we started getting into the game. And session went fine, but yeah, she was pulling something, but we just couldn't figure out what. So Dan comes up to me and he says, "Well, you have that laptop, right? And you have internet access?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Go ahead and put this." He gives me a program to put on my computer, and it's supposed to help me keep track of player charts and stuff. And I don't even know what the program is anymore. I don't even remember it anymore. But basically, it would copy down everything that the player character sheets had on them, and I would be able to keep track of everything a little bit easier. Everybody was fine with this, except for her. And she got verbally abusive about it. And I was still married to this woman I was with at the time. And she goes, "Well, no one else is having a problem with this. Why are you having a problem with this?" And this woman got onto my wife about it. And I just finally I had enough with it. I said, "You need to leave right now." And so she goes, "Fine," and she gets up and leaves. She left her player sheet there. Okay, and this is where the cat's out of the bag. Daniel goes right over to it, picks up the paper, looks at the player sheet, and says, "She's been adding numbers that shouldn't be on here." Yeah, she had been basically leveling up her character without actually leveling up. She was adding numbers to her character sheet, and whenever she was making gold or coppers or anything like that, she would add it all up, but she was never subtracting anything. Like when you go into a store, go into a store in the game and you buy something, you take some, erase some of the money off and put something else there. She wasn't even doing that. She was just straight up going, you know, raising the number higher and higher and higher, but was not lowering the numbers at any point. And yeah, and like I said, she was not playing her rogue Minotaur like a rogue at all. She was playing it like a straight fighter. And the stats she had on there proved that. So I kicked her out of my game, and we ended up starting up fresh with a new campaign altogether. And that was my first experience as an actual DM was that game. But now, when it came to starting up this channel, like I said, it was always when the gold box games were released. That's when I actually started playing as for CRPG Dungeons and Dragons night. But I did have another channel before this, and that was Leper Wolf. And there's nothing on it anymore. It's now called Ulrich Grey Wolf. That's where I was playing the Elder Scrolls Online games. And that's where they were mainly staying for all that time. But like I said, I got bored with playing Elder Scrolls Online because I wasn't really talking in them. And there was, it was just the game footage with the sound effects and no sound whatsoever, coming from me anyway. So when Pool of Radiance came out and all them came out, I just went like, I can actually do a channel on this sort of stuff. And I started it, and I've been there ever since. Okay, that was our hour-long history lesson. I am so freaking sorry. And people are probably buzzing in and out going, damn, he hasn't shut up yet. But mainly, yeah, I just wanted to get all that out there because apparently a lot of people get this nasty impression that I'm this expert on Dungeons and Dragons. I am not. I'm not even close. I'm no Matt Mercer. I'm not any like any of those guys out there that go on the channel giving advice and stuff. I am not going to pretend to be an expert on anything. I'm just going to say I'm actually asking advice from you guys. And that's what it's mainly been, is like, instead of me giving advice, it's me asking advice. And that's mainly what my channel's about. Granted, I'm not very good at taking the advice. Because 9 times out of 10, I already forget what the advice is by the time I get back to the game the following day or week or whatever. So I do my best to write everything down, and then I lose track of where I wrote it down. I thought Miley was in here. She left. Don't know when that happened. Doors closed. So, yeah, I'm probably going to go for another half hour, 45 minutes. Didn't want to be on too long tonight. I would have played DDO tonight, but I wanted to take a break after the little debacle of me and him. Because, yeah, I am a little upset with the way he talks to me, but at the same time, I'm used to it. So I'm just letting it cool off a little bit before I get back. Because I do have a temper. And last one anybody needs on this to see on this channel is me having a temper. Because that will kill my show quick. Because I have a mean temper. And I don't like having that temper. I've been working on it for years to try to get it to terms, I guess. I mean, this is the closest I've been to, not flipping out on somebody. That's why I don't play like those Elden Ring or any of the Dark Souls games, because I will get violent when I start getting mad. And I don't like being violent. I am not, by nature, I am not a violent person. I will try to talk my way out of a situation, but when I'm mad, it's a completely different story. And I can get to the point of being mad where I basically mentally black out, and I have no idea, where the bodies came from afterwards, kind of a thing. I'm scary, and I don't like it. Unfortunately, yeah, the girls had seen that. Yeah, I'm sadly the girls did see that side of me, and it was a major regret on my part, and I didn't take care of it when I should have. I'm mainly a person. I'm very a solitude based person. and I don't do well with crowds. So of course, when I'm constantly surrounded by people, it does hurt. It does start to mentally wear down on me, and I'll start getting angry for no reason. And like I said, I've been working on it for years, and it's like the closest I've been is like how I am now to not being this angry person all the time. I mean, I shouldn't even be talking about this because it's probably scaring people away at this point. But yeah, I have been working on it. It's like, but I do have to have my moments where I have to be completely away from everybody for a period of time if I'm going to remain sane. But me being on, like, say, on a computer, talking to you guys, being on the games, being online, um, that's like the best I could do. Um, Funny thing is, though, I have a lot of fun when I'm at conventions and stuff, and I think it has a lot to do with I separate myself from the situation using a camera, which I never thought that was actually true because I've heard a lot of people, like, when they're like viewing things from a camera, it separates them from the reality. And it's true. It's true. The last convention I went to, I was getting a little rammy. I was getting a little upset. And it was mainly because me and dad had been arguing off and on throughout the whole thing. Because he wanted to look at stuff, but at the same time, I'm trying to film things at the same time. So I decided, you know what, we'll do my dad's stuff first, and then I'll do my video stuff. So as we're going around, certain vendors, I'd say, hey, I'd like to give you an interview a little bit later. I'd give them my business card. Yes, if you haven't seen them, I do have business cards. I need to restock, but yeah, these are my business cards. And when I got this was a full box of about 200 in here. And I need to restock because, well, I'll have to wait till after the next convention, I guess, before I do that. I'll probably run out before then. But yeah, I ended up getting business cards because when I first started, I would verbally give them my address, or I would show, or have them take a picture of my YouTube site on the phone. I'm holding my hand up like I'm holding the phone. But yeah, I would have it on my phone, show it to them, and they would take a picture of it on their phone. And that's how we were, that's how they would get to my channel. And I was going sitting there going like, and 9 times out of 10, most of them would forget. I think. I mean, I was surprised when a person popped up on here saying that they came on and they were one of the people that I took a picture of at one of more recent conventions. So like about earlier this year, I went and got ordered these cards and start. I think it was back in February, and started passing around whenever I took pictures of cosplayers or interviewed vendors, or if anybody just asked for a card because they were curious. So that's why I started with the cards thing, because I thought it'd be a lot easier than having me take your picture, then have to fiddle with my phone to get the the YouTube channel up on my phone, so they could take a picture of it or whatever. So yeah, so that's the reasoning behind that. Now people are telling me, well, maybe you should get one of those little scan things on your cards too, and I'm just sitting there going, scan. I'm just, so I looked into it and I'm going like, yeah, I don't know if I could do that. That seems a little too complicated for me right now. Maybe later on I'll start that, but yeah, right now I'm still a budding channel. 3 years, I'm still growing. I haven't reached adulthood yet, but now I've been to a few conventions, and now there's people that start recognizing me now because I've been at them so many times now. And a lot of the conventions, it's a lot of the same people there. Like a lot of the cosplayers are regulars at these conventions, and there's a lot of vendors that are regulars. So I've done anime conventions, I've done comic book conventions, and I've done one Renaissance fair. And I'm not going to go to the Renaissance fair this year because I can't afford to go. You know, I'm still out. I'm still minus a job right now. And what is up with my hair on this side? It's like it's all on this side. I've just not noticed it because it keeps sticking out every time I look away. I comb my hair, so I don't know why it's like that on this side. Maybe I need to cut it down over there or let it grow out a little bit more so it relaxes. But so yeah, I enjoy going to those conventions because it's like I get to see things I normally don't get to see while I'm sitting in my house hibernating. Um, I am going to be going. I'm going to try to go to a convention later this month on the 16th and 17th, and that's the I think it's called the Trailblazer Expo. Yeah, Trailblazer Expo, and that's going to be at the Fresno Fairgrounds, which pretty much most of the conventions I've gone to have been there. I think there's only been 2 or 3 where there have been somewhere else. Yeah, one was over at the 509, which is the Veterans VFA, over here, over on First Street, which is right around the corner from me. That's why I was able to get to that one real quick. And Sierra Vista, which is a mall just off the Clovis Avenue, a few miles that way, east of Fresno. But and that was the free one. That was the last convention I went to. So yeah, you got. But the larger ones are usually at the Fresno Fairgrounds, and they didn't have. I don't think they had one last month because the fair was. They actually had the fair going at the beginning of October, so there wasn't any conventions I was aware of going on. And this month there's going to be a convention, and there's also going to be a Renaissance fair. I don't think I'm going to go to the Renaissance fair this year, but I am going to go to the Anime Con, which is the Trailblazer Expo. Which, hold on, I got the list of things they're going to be doing there. Hold on, give me just a second. I get pictures of it that I can read from. Okay, Trailblazer Expo. They're going to have a tournament there with awards and cash prizes for Street Fighter 6, Tekken 7, Mortal Kombat 1, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Tournament held Saturday and Sunday. Please note, tournament controllers will be provided. This is a non-bring your own controller tournament. I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay. Trailblazer Expo Cosplay Contest. Cosplay Contest. Awards and prizes. Best Genshin Impact. Honkai Star Rail Cosplay. Best in Show Cosplay. Best Creative Cosplay. And Judges Reward. Please note, cosplay contest is open to everyone and all cosplay from anime to gaming. And then they say they're going to have a maid cafe there, which will have snacks, drinks, meet and greets, maid photos, Saturday and Sunday. Please note this will not be a full-service maid cafe. Thank you for your understanding. Otherwise, there's not going to be any games, table games or anything like that, because it makes no mention of it. So I'm hoping to go to that one. And the last convention I went to that was at the fairgrounds, they did have a maid thing going on there, but when I interviewed the girl asking her about it, you could barely hear her because they had those big ol' ass fans blasting above us in that room, and it was freezing in there. It was in the summer, and it was freezing in there. Yeah, it's not full service. What? No head? So no head then? Which I would never ask that. I will say an embarrassing thing that happened to me in the last convention. At one of the vendors, there was a girl there showing her art, selling her artwork and stuff, which was very good artwork. I have an interview. There's an interview with me, me giving her an interview on it. And after the interview, I asked for her phone number because I was hitting on her. And she kind of caught on and said, "Sorry, I'm already spoken for." And then after all that, my dad goes, "You shouldn't have done that." And I'm sitting there going like, "Yeah, I'm here as a business. I shouldn't have been hitting on people while I'm out, doing my job." So afterwards, I'm like kicking myself in the ass, going, "Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was stupid." So if she's sitting here watching this, I'm sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was bad on me. But yeah, I asked for her phone number, and then afterwards, I was kicking myself in the ass for it. Well, like I said, I'm not very good with the what Kathy Bates called the social skills. I'm out. Do I got any water left? Yeah, I do. So yeah, I don't recommend using your position in interviewing people for asking for phone numbers, because I even felt pretty bad afterwards because I'm realizing, yeah, that was kind of stupid. Although someone pointed out to me that there was someone that that I'm not going to point out, but you guys could probably figure it out on your own. There was someone that I interviewed that someone pointed out did seem like they were kind of into me. And the thing was, is that interview happened probably right after the other one, and so I was kind of disheartened and feeling really stupid. And if she was doing what they're saying she was doing, I probably didn't notice. And by the way, that person in question, if this is true and you were into me for whatever reason, let me know in my email, because I am an idiot and I don't know signals. I mean, hell, when I asked my eventual ex-wife out for the first time, I was a nervous wreck, and I was under the opinion it wasn't panning out well until she finally said, "Okay." I mean, I'm not antisocial. I'm just extremely nervous around people. And then, like I said, when I do actually try to ask someone out, I feel like an idiot afterwards because it's like I don't know if I'm doing something right, if I'm doing something wrong, or what. I'm not social. I don't socialize very much. Yeah, it gets a little dicey. It does. Anyway, so we'll probably go for another 20 minutes. I'm probably going to call it a night because I got to get up in the morning. But yeah, I didn't realize the closet door was open. It's kind of creepy. Yeah, go over there and close it later. Uh, anyway, so Let's see. Give me just a second. Oh, there we go. So yeah, I'm going to be playing. I'm going to continue playing Dungeons and Dragons online. I'm going to be playing this new character, but yeah, what's going on with that is, he's a little upset with me because I'm not playing it right, which I don't understand how anybody plays anything right when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. But he's talking about the hot bars, that I'm not utilizing the hot bars correctly. And my problem with the hot bars is I really don't know how to use the hot bars correctly. I don't know what any of the feats are or anything like that, because I never used them myself when I was playing D&D. I was usually the DM, and I haven't played a player character in years, which was back in like 2006, 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. That was like the last time I ever played a character. And then gotta get out there a train like Naruto. I don't think I understand that metaphor because I never watched Naruto. I know who Naruto is. It's that I'm a ninja guy, and apparently running with their hands to their side out like this, like it's a wingspan. That's the only really thing I really know about it. Although I remember seeing that in Dragon Ball, so I don't know why they call it the Naruto run. Anyways, yeah. So I replaced Fantasy with Baldur's Gate instead, and so far it looks like Baldur's Gate is playing okay. I'm going to be continuing reading the manual probably tomorrow night. I may even do it later tonight. If I don't end up sleeping, I'll probably get up like 4 or 5 and play it. Oh, so it is the run you're talking about. Okay. Okay, so you are talking about the run. I didn't know it was called a train. Okay, so my scheduling for the games now is going to be. Give me a second here. Yeah. Eye of the Beholder, followed by Pool of Radiance. Dungeon Hack, I pretty much just play that when I feel like playing it. So there's no real schedule for that particular game. I got to get back to 2 other games I got to remember. Okay, it was one game I got to get back to is Dungeons and Dragons Order of the Griffin. I need to get back to that one. And Shadowrun. And where is it? Okay, Phantasy Star Gaiden. Although I'm probably going to play Phantasy Star Gaiden, then have no, yeah, it's going to be Shadowrun, then Phantasy Star Gaiden. Hi, Miley. And then it's going to be, hold on, let me get out of here. Then it's going to be Wizardry 6, Bane of the Cosmic Forge, because I got to get back to that one. Eventually, I'm going to get out of that castle. And then Legends of Amberland. And that's a game I haven't played in a while. I need to get back to that one too. Then Baldur's Gate. And on the weekends, it's going to be Dungeons and Dragons Online. And I say weekends as it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it might not be all 3 days. It might only be one night. It could be 2 nights. It could be all 3 nights. And if it's one night, it's going to be either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Same thing with 2 days. But three, it's going to be all 3 nights, guaranteed. But yeah, it's iffy on what days I do Dungeons and Dragons Online over the weekends, starting on Fridays. But order-wise, all the other ones, all from that I mentioned before, those are all setup and me playing them in that order, except for Dungeon Hack, which, like I said, I play that when I feel like playing it. Any questions? Well, she didn't stay in here very long. She went straight over to eating. So tomorrow night, I'm going to finish reading the manual first before I continue any gaming otherwise, which hopefully will be two, maybe 3 more nights. Because you saw how long it took me to read the wizard spells. That took me 2 nights. So now I'm up to the cleric, so that might be the same thing, 2 more nights, and then probably 1 more night for everything else. So I'm thinking probably a total of 3 nights. Maybe. And then we'll get back to the gaming for a while, because I think that's pretty much all the manuals up to this point. And then when I decide to start up a new game, I'll if there's a manual that's available, I'll read the manual before I start the game. That's my new self-imposed rule now. Yeah, that is a full lineup. I believe it is. Hold on, that is 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a total of 10 games. It's a total of 10 games altogether. But some are being played more than others. For instance, like Dungeons and Dragons Online, that's going to be the one that's played the most, because that's over every weekend. And all the other games are put on hold until then. So yeah, the newest game I got on there right now is Baldur's Gate and Phantasy Star Gaiden. Which, by the way, for those that don't know, Phantasy Star Gaiden was published after Phantasy Star 2, but takes place between Phantasy Star 1 and Phantasy Star 2, somewhere like 500 years between the two. Because 1 and 2 take place about 1,000 years from each other. So, yeah, and Gaiden takes place around the 500 mark, give or take a few hundred years. But and it was also never released in the States. This is a fan translated, so it might not be 100% of a clear cut game, dialogue and story wise. But to my understanding, this is the smaller of the games, and I'm not looking forward to Phantasy Star 2, and that's because that one has the heaviest grinding going on with it. Especially towards the end game, you really have to grind out, because there's like a particular spell you need, but you need to be like at a certain level to get it, and it takes forever to get to that level, even from the start of the game. At least to my understanding from the strategy guides I've read on it. There's like one particular spell that helps you out with the final boss, and if you don't have it, you have very little chance of winning the game. Oh, here she comes. And so, but yeah, once I'm done with the Phantasy Star games, I don't think I'm going to be playing any more JRPGs on my channel, at least for a while. I might, quote unquote, might play. Let me see if I have it on my roster. I might play Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger. Because again, those are games I've never played. I played a little bit of Chrono Trigger, so I might play that, because, and I'm saying this for a reason, because I refuse to play Final Fantasy or any of the Dragon Quest / Dragon Warrior games on my channel. because those have been played to death by everybody. And I'm not a big, I used to be, but I'm not so much anymore, especially when I realized that pretty much every single one of the stories are terrible for Final Fantasy. And that's my personal opinion. Everybody else stands by the games, everybody else loves the games. I don't. I used to. I think the last one I really had a good interest in was 9. And that was because that was more in the form of the original games. I mean, style wise and gameplay wise. And every time they have a new game, it's like they reimagine the entire system, and it drives me crazy every time. Because I gotta relearn the game all over again. Now there are some games like D&D where it's like they reimagine the system and stuff, and it's like, but it's still recognizable as Dungeons and Dragons when you're playing it on computer. Like you could see a little bit of Pool of Radiance in Baldur's Gate, if you know what I mean. You could still see a little bit of Pool of Radiance. You could still see a little bit of Pool of Radiance in games like say, um, oh God, Eye of the Beholder. There's still a little bit there. It's recognizable as something Dungeons and Dragons. Final Fantasy, every time they come up with a new game, it's unrecognizable from the previous games, especially after 7. 7, it was kind of still Final Fantasy. It was kind of still there. But by the time they went to 8, I would say it was almost unrecognizable as a Final Fantasy to me. Dragon's Warrior or Dragon Quest, that one, how do I put that one? That one they actually did good. It's just the fact that the grinding is mind numbing to me on those games, especially the first one when you only have one character. And it's a small area. If you actually look at it size wise, Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Warrior 1, same game, is comparatively small to all the other games. You're basically on an island. It's not a continent at all. It's a small set of islands, and there's only about God, 1, 2, maybe a total of 4 dungeons, and they're very rudimentary small dungeons in comparison to later games. But at the same time, you don't spend very much time in those dungeons. It's like, you get yourself at a level strong enough, you can go through those dungeons no problem. But the problem is grinding and getting the money to get said items, because it takes forever to get your money to say like get the best items in the game, which are at a location far enough away. So you should be able to have the money, like say in a regular CRPG or JRPG. But in this case, it's you spend hours just walking around and waiting for the screen to go, and there's your fight. You fight one monster, you kill it, get your golden experience. And multiply that by about 15 billion times, and you got Dragon Quest. Now, they started to fix that up with Dragon Warrior 2, Dragon Quest 2, but at the same time, I think it was like about the halfway point. When you finally have your boat and you're going around and going through all the islands and stuff, and you're doing pretty good. But then when it comes to the final boss, all of a sudden there is such a level hike to the final. When you get to the final area, there's such a level hike. You're like, I wasn't prepared for this. And I can't say anything about Dragon Warrior 3 because I never got past a certain point. because there's a point that early on you're supposed to start up this village. You start up this village, and as you're doing your quests and stuff, if you don't do it like immediately when you have a boat and you can immediately go to that spot and start your village, do that. Immediately go there and start it. Because if you don't, and the people and stuff you're supposed to collect go over there, by the time it's ready for the end game before you go to the final areas of the game, if that place isn't a full-blown town by the time you get there, you're screwed. You can't finish the game because there's a game required item in there in that town that only happens once it's a full-blown town. You have to have a certain group of certain amount of people in there, and the town has to be there for a certain amount of time, and you have to start it almost immediately. Otherwise, you have no chance of winning the game afterwards. At least that's to my understanding. Because every time I've played it as early as I can get. I get all the townspeople there, and it never becomes a town. It never becomes a city or whatever it's supposed to be, so I can get that one item. It never happens. Oh, I remember what it was. You're supposed to take a merchant there. Go back to where you do the character creation for all your sidekicks, your companions and stuff, and you build a a merchant. But he has to be. I think he had to be a certain level merchant before you could actually drop him off there. So you had to level him up a little bit before you could even take him there. That was crazy. It was ridiculous, and I don't even think I ever got past that point. But like I said, with Fantasy Star 2, there is a specific spell you have to have, but you have to be a specific level. I think it's like level 50 or something like that. I don't think I made, playing it straight and leveling up and getting all my items and stuff. I don't think I made it past level 35 the last time I played it. So it's probably gonna be a very slow crawl of me playing Fantasy Star 2, and I'm going to apologize ahead of that because it's going to take me a while to get to the points I need to make a certain character level 50 so I can get a specific spell that I need to use at this final battle. I think I ranted on long enough on that. But when it comes to like the games I'm playing, yeah, JP's is probably the guy that was here earlier in the chat. He's probably one of my harshest critics, other than myself, because he's beaten Pool of Radiance and several other of the games, and he's been trying to help me out to win them. But like I said, whenever I so much as get a little bit of ground on the game, I do have a tendency. My computer has a tendency of either crashing or I flub something in between the point where it gets to the trolls and the ogres in the slums, because that's the point I really need to beat in order to get past the game. And someone was telling me, well, you don't have to beat them right away. You can actually go to other areas first. And I just sat there going like, I can do that. So this time when I get there, I'm going to see if I can go to some of the other areas and, if I can level up a little bit more before coming back to that particular fight. Because once that fight is over, the slums are safe. The slum quests are done, I think. But someone told, like I said, someone told me that I didn't have to beat it straight away. I could go off and do other things first. So I'm going to give that a shot this time. See if anything comes of that. Well, I think I'm going to call it a night. It's like I've been doing this for an hour and 54. I think it's close enough to me to where I can actually call it a night. Oh, I can do other things besides the slums. Okay, yeah, because no one's ever told me that until recently. And like I said, I've been playing Pool of Radiance for 3 years and never made headway on it. So it'd be nice to do something else instead of the same crap over and over and over and over again. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it a night here. I'm getting kind of tired, and I got to get up in the morning because I got a family friend to go visit at a rest home, or not a rest home, but a recovery center. He was the one I mentioned a while back. He had a stroke, so we got to go and see how he's doing, and then do some grocery shopping. And I got to cut. Oh, they're not going to be open Monday, but the people that ran the last convention, I think they're the owner. He's the owner of a store called Time Machine, or the Time Machine. And I want to do a like I did for uh, Legends, cards and comics and games, and uh, the Dragon Horde. I want to do the same thing with them and do a video on their store. Which, by the way, there's about 3 or 4 different gaming stores and collectible stores there. So at that mall. So I'm going to see if I can do all of them at some point. Which, by the way, I haven't gotten a call back from any of them. So I'm going to have to get a hold of everybody on, say, Tuesday and see if they're still interested. In the meantime, thank you for hanging out with me, Omizu Paints and JP. And I can't remember your other name. Let me give it just a second because you popped up earlier. Chicken Joe, also known as Mega Bordy on Twitch, and Chief Hunter. Thank you for coming by and saying hello. Everybody take care. I know everybody was pretty busy tonight. This was like a last minute thought for me to do this because I figured, a little bit of storytelling and background on me might help you guys out a little bit on what my thinking apparatus is like. And you guys take care, and I have the hiccups again as usual. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream, whichever comes first, on CRPG Dungeons and Dragons Night here on YouTube, or CRPG D&D Night on Twitch. Also, I do have a Discord that's CRPG D and D Night, with the symbol D, or the symbol and, excuse me. And I also have Twitch, or X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram as well. I believe I have links on those on the bottom of most of my videos and in my About page. So you guys take care, and I'll see you all in the next video or stream, whichever comes first. Bye-bye.